Hey everybody, this is Alex, and this is the fifth episode of the Dresden Files podcast. Sorry we were away for a while. Today we're going to talk, because it's the fifth episode, number five, we're going to talk about Denarians, a little bit of news. First, let me introduce the cast for today's episode. We have a new guest, Stark. Say hey.
Hello,
Uh,
everyone.
there you go. Justin's back.
Hi.
The other Alex,
Hi, you can call me the director, by the way.
the director. We'll get to that in a minute. And Chris is back with us again.
Yo, dudes. I'm really sad I missed the TV episode. It was the one I was looking forward to the most, but I was out of town that weekend.
Yeah, maybe we'll take a couple of minutes and go over that.
I don't want to put you guys through that again.
Yeah,
Apparently, me and Alex were the only people that liked the show.
the director Alex, not
Right,
me,
director
Alex.
Alex, not you, Alex.
Yeah, so that was episode four. Before we get into that, Stark, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and say hey to the viewers and listeners?
Yeah, sure. I suppose it'd work a little better with a question. What do you guys suggest that I?
Oh, just tell us about kind of where you're from, what's going on. How did you get into the Dresden Files?
Uh, well, basically, what ended up happening is, oh,
What's up, Alex?
Favorite three books and your favorite
Oh,
character.
I was
Like
gonna
we
get to
introduced
that after.
ourselves.
Yeah, I was gonna get to that after.
All right.
basically, what ended up happening is I was working a dead-end job in my third year of college, and really, I just saw the cover for Ghost Story on the shelf one day, and one or two people had mentioned the Dresden Files to me in the past, but they didn't really talk much about it. They just said, "Oh, you might like this series," and I thought, "Okay, sure, whatever, maybe." And I had just actually watched one or two episodes from the TV show on YouTube because, excuse me, at the time, I believe they had the whole show on YouTube for free without a paywall or anything like that for it. I don't know if that's changed or not, but either way, what ended up happening is I saw the cover, recognized it, uh, decided to just read the dust jacket for a little bit, and immediately got interested in it. And it sounded like this is so cool. Someone trying to solve their own murder as a ghost? That sounds awesome. So I actually hid the book until I was on break, and then I ran back and purchased it.
Cool.
And yeah, and then I blazed through it, and it's as cliched as it sounds, it actually did a lot of good for me. I was feeling pretty disillusioned and lost at the time, and didn't really know what I should be doing or where I should be going.
Cool.
And because the whole thing is about Dresden, reaching closure with his life, re-examining it, looking at all the choices he made, the consequences of those choices. And it really rang true with me, and plus I could relate to Dresden a whole lot.
Mhm.
So it changed my life.
Yeah, yeah, you hear that a lot. You do a lot of people talk
Mhm.
about how much stuff. So why don't you tell us about your three favorite books and your favorite character, real fast, because we got to.
Sure,
Normally we do a little more discussion, but we got to move on to other stuff. So
sure. I'll go by as fast as I can. Third book. Uh, third book is Death Masks. Do you want me to go into any detail about why I like it specifically, or just list them off?
just a little bit about why you like each one.
Okay, Death Mask because it introduced a whole lot of new characters, the Knights of the Cross, the Knights of the Black and Denarius. We also got to look a whole lot more at Marcone's backstory, which I thought was really touching. And yeah, just in general, I feel like it was the second Grave Peril, more or less.
Yeah, that's a
Uh,
good point.
yeah.
All right, next book.
Next book, Great Peril. Not much to really be said about it. I can go into the stuff why I don't like Great Peril as much as my number one pick, but either way, you guys pretty much said all there is to say about Grave Peril.
Yeah.
Not really much to add on my part. Uh, so number one, Ghost Story, and I could spend a whole lot of time talking about it, but I don't want to waste any of it. But just in general, I liked how much motif and theme there was on Dresden's life about closure and about him taking another look at things and really re-examining it. And plus, it brought a lot of interest with the fact that he couldn't use his magic for the most part. And that really forced him into a corner to really rethink how he did things, which I'd like to think has altered how he's gone about things in the later books. The only thing I didn't like about Ghost Story, though, real quick, Justine's way of solving Thomas's pain and sorrow over that. I thought that was kind of cheap. It's like, three-way, that'll fix everything, won't it?
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting. I don't think anybody put Ghost Story on their list when we talked about it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, favorite character.
Harry Dresden, hands down.
Cool. Awesome. So yeah, sorry we can't give you some more time to talk about that.
That's okay.
But we are going to be having an episode eventually where we talk about, or where we rank all the books. So it's going to come into play later. Okay, Stark, that's awesome. Thank you for being on the show. Alex, we need to thank you for doing a lot of the legwork that I've been too busy to do recently. So everyone thank Alex. Thank you, Alex.
Thanks, Alex.
Thanks, Fury.
Fury, that's funny. Director Fury. Okay, so first things first, email us at dresdenfilespodcast@gmail.com. Check us out on Twitter, twitter.com/DresdenCast. Thank you to Julie Butcher for following us on Twitter, if that is the real Julie Butcher. I hope so. You may have noticed that the iTunes hasn't been getting the podcast audio version hasn't been getting updated. We're having some issues with how we're hosting the audio files and the RSS feeds. So once we get those worked out, we'll let you know probably by next episode, and then you'll have episode 3 and 4, the audio for those. But until then, you can keep catching us at Dresden Files, the Dresden Files podcast YouTube page. Unfortunately, you need 100 subscribers before you get a custom link. So just search Dresden Files podcast on YouTube for the ones that come up for that.
Beware of imitators, too. We found out that there was some guy who was posting our podcast on his channel, stealing viewers.
That was really weird. Some random person.
It was odd.
Yeah. I mean, it's all about getting the show out there. Of course, we want you to subscribe to that channel, which weirdly enough is first name Dresden Files and last name Cast, because I'm an idiot and I made a personal YouTube account for it instead of a page. Or a personal Google Plus account, however it works. It's stupid. But yeah, just follow that channel that has the videos. The more subscribers we get, the easier it'll be to work with YouTube. So yeah, that's the spiel. Did I forget anything, Alex?
No.
Awesome. Cool. So that's that. So first we're going to talk about a little bit of news. This past week, the Dresden Files podcast was trending on Reddit. And that's a pretty big deal, right, guys?
Yeah.
It's pretty awesome.
So, who wants to talk about why it was trending? Chris, why don't you talk about it?
Sure thing. I guess I'm not familiar. I only caught the link after the fact because it was linked on Best Of. But someone posed a question about a perceived inconsistency they had in Harry's ability to interact with technology, and Jim Butcher actually came and told him, well, no, this is what I was thinking. This is why. This is why your perceived inconsistency is incorrect. And the guy actually was like, no, you're wrong. And he was corrected many times, like, dude, look at who just told you that. And finally, later on, he edited, he's like, I'm so sorry, I didn't realize, sir. Please forgive me. And that actually brought like a lot of new traffic to the Dresden Files subreddit. Which I think is why the current sticky is like, hey, welcome new people, but also, podcasts, check them out.
Yep. Yeah, and it was, I don't know, did you say it was actually the top post of Best Of? It was number 1. Here's the text. You see Jim Butcher responding. Of course, the guy's
The
username is
fartmonger,
the
yeah.
fartmonger. So perfect. Oh, Reddit. So that was that post. Yeah, I mean, there hasn't. Do you guys feel like there hasn't been a lot of stuff going on so far? I mean, because in the subreddit, I think it's mainly because we're in between books right now.
Well, yeah, it's off season. You see that in book subreddits and TV subreddits. Like, it's just people trying to entertain each other while we, count down the days.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah, I mean, because it's going to be October before Aeronauts Windless comes out, isn't it? And then
That's
we've still got
September.
okay, September. Either way, it's going to be several months, and then it's going to be first quarter if we're lucky before we get peace talks. So pretty much, yay podcasts and things that crop up in the middle of waiting for books because he's got the busy I'm writing light on outside of his door. So
Just fucking George R. R. Martin. Well, at least it's not as bad as George R. R. Martin. That would be
That's
terrible.
true. It could be 5 years before we
Yeah.
get the next book.
7 years.
You're gonna bring up George R. R. Martin with me around, are you?
Yeah. Well, wrong podcast, right?
Yeah.
Cool. So that's was there any other news? Oh, Gabe from the Penny Arcade, which is a web comic, and also the Penny Arcade Expo. He's been reading the Dresden Files, so he's been doing drawings. Let me see if I can grab those.
There should be one, I think, made the Dresden Files podcast.
subreddit. Yeah,
I mean,
you guys keep calling it the podcast. So.
It's about to be on the podcast, though, so this drawing actually made the podcast.
That's the
Right
latest
now,
one.
It just made the podcast.
Nice. I'll be like, did you see it right there when it made it?
So there was another one, I think like a month or two ago. But it's pretty cool to see someone that's so high profile in kind of the nerd community to be into the Dresden Files and be talking about it. Also, anybody who happens to listen or watch this podcast and happens to live in Connecticut, I will be attending ConnectiCon. It's a nerd convention in Connecticut. There's going to be a panel about the Dresden Files, which I will be attending. So if you're there, come say hey to me. Yeah, ConnectiCon. That's sometime in July. Next month. You can look it up. So that's it for news. Let's get into our topic here. Justin, you want to lead us off?
Sure thing. It's an episode of Multiple of Five, so we decided to go ahead and do a Denarian episode. And I was actually tasked with finding a bunch of the research, and both amazingly and disturbingly, there was not a lot of information to find. So I'm kind of interested to see if any of our listeners find some additional information, because I was surprised at how hard it was. And usually I'm the guy that like plugs things into Google, and Google just tells me all its secrets. But when I was looking for it, I mean, two of the main sources were, of course, like competing wikis. And then, like Dresden Files Wiki and Wikia or whatever. And then there was one random Yahoo answer of all things, but there was no sources, so it's really hard to kind of cite it. But they basically pulled a bunch of names and said that these are like very similar angelic names, but I didn't have enough time to like track down each individual source for that sort of thing. So kind of neat. I think we're just talking about a couple of main bullet points. As silly as it is for villains, we're going to go ahead and do like a favorite and least favorite. And I think, I mean, as far as villains goes, it's usually just which one, is exciting, or which one is like keeps us on our toes or something like that. I mean, you be the judge of what's your favorite for why, but we go ahead and start with that. So.
Okay.
And-
I'll go ahead and lead us off if you don't mind.
Go for it, Chris.
So my favorite, or yeah, I guess we'll go favorite and then least favorite, is Namshell, called Thorn Namshell. I like him. I think he's not cool per se, but the idea that, if you're a practicing magic user for a few centuries, you're going to be very, very good at it. It mostly just makes me excited for, Harry's already this walking super awesome person now, and he's only, in his 30s?
Well, He's getting up there actually. I think he's in his 40s now.
40s
So
now, so yeah.
yeah, depending on the timeline you look at, I guess.
hmm So yeah, that's mostly why I like Thornamshire. And then my least favorite is Quintus Cassius, or was it Siluriel?
Right.
I hated how he fake gave up. You know, he's like, I'm sorry, I repent, here's my coin. And then
Oh,
I enjoyed him getting the crap beat out of him with a baseball.
yeah. Honestly, that is one of the best scenes in my opinion. Like
Mhm.
just because
Mhm.
just the line of, well, that's kind of what I expected from them because they're Knights of the Cross, but I'm no saint, so we're gonna spend 5 minutes in the ring. So, but yeah, yeah, it's interesting that you hated that because to me, like, I mean, I've been playing D&D for a billion years, so I've seen a couple of things, but that's definitely the classic weasel your way out while there's a paladin
Oh, for
present,
sure, yeah.
So
Lawful
so
good.
to
He's
see him
not gonna.
actually, yep,
You're
to
gonna
see
let
him
them torture
actually
me?
do that, be like, but I said I gave up, even though you know that I'm going to do it again in the next
Yeah.
5 minutes, and as
Well,
soon as you
okay.
turn your back.
Yeah, it was really more of him explaining to Dresden like they're not allowed to touch me now. You know, he was like matter of factly about it. Like
Uh-huh.
feigning giving up and then slinking away, I wouldn't have so much of a problem with. It was the fact that he was blunt about, yeah, I don't actually mean it, but they can't do shit about it.
Right.
I think that was also to show us, the readers, the kind of dogma of the Knights of the Cross, and how they're not actually there to beat the crap out of Denarians. They're there to help Denarians save themselves. So
Yeah.
that was, I think, part of it. But I agree with you. It's hard to read. It's like, come on, he obviously doesn't mean it. Just kill him, or you know. So I'm with you there when you were saying how it was nice to see him get the crap beat out of him. But
Right.
like most things, it comes to bite Harry in the butt later.
Yes, it does.
Almost literally, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I think it's also important to keep in mind that like Dresden sort of takes on the role of the everyman as often as not, and that was kind of his role there. Like, it's liver spots explaining that to Dresden as us, and then Dresden responding the way that we wanted to respond anyways while we're reading it, and we're like, somebody like ice this fool. And then Dresden's like, hey, I happen to, in the trunk, I found a baseball bat. Do you mind if I just a couple of minutes with this guy? We're just going to have a conversation. So,
Alex and Stark, did you have anything to say about either of those scenarios?
Uh, not really.
I do.
Go for it, Stark.
Well, just on the note of with Siluriel and Quintus Cassius, I actually really like Quintus Cassius as a character just because of the story arc with him. First off, with the torture scene, and then ending with the reversal of the torture scene and with his death curse that he places. I like that, but I do hate Siluriel, and he's my least favorite Denarian, just because he felt, well, at the same time, he felt kind of like over cliched as like a Harryhausen effect. You know, the half serpent man, like
Yeah.
that's kind of cool, but at the same time, it's like, we don't care. It's like a bad Saturday morning cartoon villain. It's like snakes. That's mostly it. So that's really all I've got to say. But I do, with Thorn Nanchio, hands down, definitely has one of the most coolest looking visualizations for a Denarian.
I think it's important to know before we move on that it's interesting that Nicodemus chooses what was his name, Cassius, as one of his kind of, because Cassius is one of the first Denarians that we see, not the first, but one of the first. You see him in death masks. I think that's important, and I think we're obviously going to see more of what's the actual fallen angel's name. Yeah,
Siluriel.
yeah, I think we're going to see Siluriel again. Okay, Alex, director Alex, favorite and least favorite.
I don't think I have a favorite or least favorite Denarian. I just have like favorite moments, which seems to be what we're going with anyway.
Yeah.
It's like
Okay.
Magog seems really, really boring, but I loved the introduction with killing him that introduces Elvis Gruff. It's like the build up to that and it's hilarious, and Gruff is an awesome character anyway. So it's like that's something I really like.
It was a really great moment.
Mm.
Yeah, after that is when Lash kind of went away in White Knight. She's not Lash Shield, but she's like the ending kind of makes me teary eyed sometimes.
Mm.
Mm.
Cool. Anybody have anything to say about that?
I kind of agree with the Magog thing, and it was really hard not to pick him just because of that scene, because it's like you know who he is because he dies so spectacularly,
Yeah.
and then the scene that follows is, like the best lines delivered in that book practically. So, like it is Dresden thinking like a fairy, and Eldest Gruff respecting him because he got outwitted, not out magicked, which would have never happened clearly. But yeah, just fantastic scene, and that Magog, he kind of, I can't think of the correlation that I'm drawing here, but basically he's this big tanker of a monster, and so because of the escalation with the Gruffs, you're expecting this giant truck of a monster to come in, and it just threw down with the tank of the Denarians, and then they're like, oh yeah, it's just this little old wizard guy. So don't mess with the old guy. There's a reason why he's old.
Yeah, I remember the descriptions of Harry hearing the footprints of Eldest Gruff as he's walking in. It's like, oh, come on already. Where is this guy? He's got to be huge.
Yeah.
And he's like 5'2".
Correct.
Yeah, that was pretty funny. Yeah, and it was. I think Justin, I'm kind of jumping on what you said. It was cool to see the kind of interaction between the obviously very very powerful Fae and the also powerful, but obviously not nearly as powerful Denarian. So that was cool. Okay, Stark, go for it.
Well, I already touched upon with what Chris was talking about with Quintus Cassius and Solarial. But as far as my favorite Denarian goes, probably have to go with Deirdre. Mostly because I like the strange macabre relationship that she has with Nicodemus, and generally that whole family. Like, it's one fucked up family, but it's weird because you can tell that there is a sense of family there. I mean, it's kind of like if you look at the relationship with just another pop culture reference with, like, the Joker and Harley Quinn. You can tell that there is something going on there. There is some sort of interaction. There is some sort of feeling, but it's all warped and changed into this very disturbing, but at oddly sometimes heartwarming kind of fashion.
You're really creeping me out right now.
No, it's an interesting point that how like you're kind of seeing like a family through a filter of very very psychotic and insane
Mm-hmm.
individuals. So
Mm-hmm.
that's an interesting point. So so wait, you said that's your favorite. Who's your least
And then
favorite?
Solarial was his least favorite.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, the other hosts know how forgetful I am sometimes. So Deirdre, yeah, I honestly think that Deirdre is the most batshit insane Denarian. I don't know if there's like a more insane Denarian than her, especially after Skin Game. What do you guys think?
I think Tessa is far more batshit.
Wait. Sorry, I confused the two in my head.
Okay.
Tessa is the most batshit. Tessa's the bug girl, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just don't want her to die. Okay, scratch that. Tessa's the most insane. He's just the second most insane.
I don't know. So, I mean, I kind of agree with the first statement now that you've retconned it, though. But, I mean, Deirdre, I mean, she has to be, right? So she's clearly been programmed by Nicodemus. I mean, think about it. I mean, I'm showing my nerd D&D colors here again, but still, like, she is the epitome of chaotic evil. Like, because it's funny is a good enough reason to do it, and she'll just do it because it's terrible. Not because she's got a plan, not because she's doing whatever. So, I mean, the Joker, like, tie-in is kind of apt, because she really is kind of the Harley Quinn of, or Harlequin, in this case, of the Dresden Files, minus the funny, because mostly just the horrifying and the ick. But,
I'm sure it's funny to her.
Right? So, and I mean, Tessa is crazy, don't get me wrong, but she's a mother, and I think seeing it from that context, like all of her actions in Skin Game under the lens of she's doing it as a mother, just I could easily see that as just her being Mama Bear. And so like sure, yes, crazy, I'm not discounting that, but let's put the two up on the big screen side by side, and which one really gives you the shivers. Deidre is effing crazy and Tessa is like crazy with motivation. So I don't know, it's kind of interesting.
Tessa, yes, has the mother aspect to her, but it never seemed to really matter as much to her as I would have expected if that was like her driving reason to be crazy in Skin Game. It seemed like there's something else going on too, in the fact that she's not helping Deidre as much in the other books until it's the point that she starts trying to take things away from Nicodemus. So it's like, there's not as much of the mother aspect of her that I see.
Maybe, and to me though, that's just even more human in a sense, because so you got Nicodemus and Tessa, mommy and daddy, they're fighting. They've been fighting for about 2,000 years. Sometimes they work together, but let's face it, they're a divorced couple. And using the kids as pawns, like, I'm sorry if this hits home to anybody, but seriously, like, they're not good people, they're villains, so using one to leverage on the other is totally a thing. And once Dresden kind of puts it together that really in this case she seems to be unhinging it, it's sort of the finality of death as well, of she's not going to have another 2,000 years to make this right. It's now or never. And so she's pulling out all the stops. I mean, she lured the only Knight of the Cross away to make sure that he couldn't screw up her plans. She sent half of her forces to another country to cause a nuclear incident so that Sonya had to go there so that she could show up and try and stop them. And I mean, maybe I'm building my own headcanon there, for sure, but I think the little pieces are there, and I think it'd be an interesting thing to hear Butcher talk about, because I think some of it is, well, it's not some of it, a lot of it is behind the scenes, and so you don't really get her motivations, you just get what Dresden sees are her motivations. So
it always bugged me though in Skin Game when she's attacking Harry and he asks, "What's your problem?" She says, "I haven't worked for 15 centuries just to see it throw away." It, not her. So there's something else.
Yeah, I agree, and that's one of the most tantalizing, frustrating things about Skin Game and about the series. And we're gonna get to this more later. But why did he kill Deidre? Why did Deidre die? Why would he sacrifice? I'm talking about Nicodemus now. His most trusted lieutenant. It's driving me crazy. I want to know what's gonna happen later.
Why'd Harry kill Susan?
But I don't know. I mean. But you could directly see an end goal there, right? Harry killed Susan so that the entire vampire race. We don't see I mean, there might be something there, but what is it? That's really what I'm asking.
It really seems to be that Deidre and Nick think that they're fighting to save the world, and at least that's what she believes. So that there is not quite as obvious, but there's a direct correlation with it.
We'll get to it. Promise. So Stark, Justin went already.
Ish. I mean, I was just gonna pile on with Chris honestly in Thorn and Namshiel, and part of it is definitely there's some coolness there, and he's one of the Denarians that hasn't gotten a lot of face time so much. But really, the main reason that I want to see more of him is because I want to know what happened at Arctis Tour, and that it seems like he has Nemesis. So does the angel have Nemesis, or did the host have Nemesis? Do they both have Nemesis? What's going on there? Because pretty much that was half of the reason for the fetches to be doing their thing. It's at best it's half the reason, because it's Mab. She can't ever do things one way. It's got to be three ways, and you get to see some of that in Cold Days and beyond. That very clearly it seems like something else was being set in motion there. But the whole Hellfire was there, and we're pretty sure it was Thorn and Namshiel, and he sort of cops to it in small favor, if I remember right. But then you don't really actually get an answer, and so I want to know why. I want to know the why, and I hope there's a explanation. But
yeah, if it's not Thorn and Namshiel there, who's throwing Hellfire, it better be some really good explanation, because
right.
if Butcher is leading us in is purposely red herring, giving us a red herring, then hopefully there's a better explanation.
Right.
I mean, you guys keep talking about Thor Nashville. You guys don't think he's kind of a bitch? He's like one of the. He's like one of the. I mean, granted, he was assaulted by Soulfire, which is like the ultimate force of the universe, but he's one of the only Denarians that we see really get the shit beat out of them, just fucking wholesale destroyed, right?
Have you ever seen Harry take a beating? Wizards, it just seems to be kind of their lot in life, and
Yeah,
the term glass cannon comes to mind. Like,
yeah.
if the dude had been out in Kincaid's hideout, that guy could have laid waste to everything in the aquarium, but he was stuck on the ground like a sucker and basically got taken out with a stick, I
Yeah,
mean,
but you say
Well, no,
glass.
he wasn't stuck on the ground. He was using his power to contain the fucking archive. All right, like
That's true. He was
was-
helping to set up the ritual.
Apparently Chris isn't passionate about this at all, so
No, I mean, you say he's a glass cannon, but he's literally made of thorns.
yeah.
So, I don't know. I don't know. I'm excited, though, to see. I am excited to see. What's up, Stark?
I was just quietly seeing every rose has its thorn.
That's funny. Yeah, I am excited to see what happens with Thor Nashville, even though I think he's a bitch. Okay, so I saved myself for last because I have a very, very much Denarian who I hate, and I think you all know. Well, most of you probably know because I talked about it at great length. I hate Nicodemus, and I will talk about it. But really, it's when I see in fiction a character or characters or anything in fiction that so obviously personifies hate or not hate, evil, absolute evil, I will always be against it. You see it pretty clearly in Harry Potter with Voldemort, and that's one of the reasons why I love that series. And J.K. Rowling's really good at kind of laying that out. And I think you see it. I think Butcher also is really good at personifying evil, making it really straightforward. These characters, I mean, until we see kind of the greater plan, you see like these characters are just straight up evil. They kill indiscriminately. They commit horrible acts of terribleness, and torture and genocide, and you just keep on seeing it and seeing it and seeing it. And Nicodemus is the leader of all of that. He's an arrogant douchebag asshole jerk, and I fucking hate him. And if there's anybody who I want to see die in the Dresden Files, it's him. /Brand. So yeah, fucking hate Nicodemus. I don't know. Do you guys feel differently?
No, I think that's pretty accurate. I mean, I think if you start to identify with the villain, you should, take a look in the mirror for a sec and ask some questions. But, it's definitely, I think it's easy to do, and I think that's part of where the twist is coming, and I feel like Butcher is trying to set that up. So what remains to be seen is Nicodemus a hero in his own mind, or is he actually, like, somehow, in some twisted way, actually going to be helping? And so I think that's what we're going to see in book 20, or maybe even along the way, maybe he breaks down his every 5 books thing. But yeah.
Nicodemus firmly believes that he is a hero in his own mind, because that's what Jim Butcher says every time everyone is the good man in their story. So there is something that he thinks of himself as a good person.
But even if he is like saving the universe, the means. The means don't justify the ends. He acts in a way that's so destructive and bad and evil that it doesn't really matter if in the end he does something good. To me, like I'm of the belief that once you do a certain amount of evil, there's no way that you can come back. There's no redemption. There's no being good again. But that's, I think,
Darth Vader then, right?
Yeah, it was like poor Anakin Skywalker.
Oh yeah, of course. He commits. I think we're going to see that in the new movie. He commits horrible, terrible acts after the Return of the Jedi. At least in the expanded universe, he like kills whole planets, and yeah, he's evil, and he cannot come back. So that's kind of I think that might be a discussion for another episode, kind of good versus evil and how it relates to the Dresden Files. But yeah, fuck Nicodemus. Fucking hate him. Yeah, he's just so fucking arrogant. That's why I love the Skin Game, because you like finally saw, unless it was an act that he was putting on, I think you finally saw him getting kind of hurt, you know.
So I'm going to ask you, because you used the word arrogant, so I'm going to push this just a little bit.
Go for it.
So with arrogance, like, so I think arrogance is like self-importance, right? So you think that you could do things whether or not you've done them before, but is
No,
Nicodemus actually like arrogant, or is he self-assured?
No, he arrogant as in he is self-assured. He's very sure of himself, but arrogant. He is the most important person in his world.
Okay.
And the best person, and he's the best of all things to himself. That's arrogant. He's better than everyone. He's stronger, faster, but he's obviously not. He can be defeated, and seeing that until now, we've been led to believe, right, that no, I guess pretty much anybody on Dresden's level or anyone on the level of the Knights of the Cross alone could not beat Nicodemus. But now we've seen both those things to be false. Right? Dresden routs him, and one of the Knights of the Cross, granted he has a lightsaber and he's awesome, routs Nicodemus. So, yeah.
Good. I like it. Good response. So.
Yeah, fuck Nicodemus. So that's my, and there's going to be a lot of more times where we talk about how much I hate Nicodemus.
I'm sure it'll come up.
Yeah. Fucking hate Nicodemus. My favorite Denarian, and she's actually my favorite. I don't know, I guess because it's not the Fallen Angel, but wow, I'm now seriously blanking on her name. The person Lashiel took over in Skin Game.
Hannah Asher.
Hannah Asher. Yeah, she was my favorite. She was one of my favorite characters in that book. I really I think that was the first time, because that was the first time we've seen like a kind of recent Denarian, like someone who just inherited that power, except I guess for Harry, but he never took up the coin. So that was the first time we'd seen someone like in the past year or two or however long it had been take up the coin. Pretty much all the other Denarians we've seen had them for like decades or centuries. So you got to see like that conflict and that like the rise and fall of the Denarian. I thought that was really interesting. I think that was the first time we've kind of seen what might be a good reason. I use that very loosely. What might, because again, evil sucks. What might have been a good reason for taking up the coin, right? You see, Hannah Asher's had like this terrible life. She was almost raped, and in order to escape, she has to kill wardens, and then she's been on the run since then. So she's been kind of, treated like a criminal for her entire life. So it's like, if I'm being treated by a criminal, why not just become the ultimate criminal? Yeah, I thought that was really interesting, and I really think we haven't seen the end of her. I don't think she's dead. What do you guys think?
I think that's an interesting claim, but it does fit into the whole you didn't see the body, so they died off screen basically. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. I mean, Butcher has sort of done it before, but I think it would be interesting as hell for that to actually pull off. So I'll remain skeptical, but there's a strong possibility. So, and I was just going to add that I think the moral of the story for Alex's piece here is that don't do evil, stay in school. So,
yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, you could have seen Hannah Asher be such like a great force for good. Like, she was obviously really passionate and really powerful, and I think it's a really good example of she's a really good foil to Harry Dresden, and she's a really good example of how, because you see this with Molly too, when you kind of push power on someone, you can see it go the other way. So in pushing power on someone who's done bad, or pushing authority on someone who's done bad, they just get worse. The whole incarceration versus rehabilitation. Yeah, that's a debate for the ages. I mean, what did you guys think about Hannah Asher's character? I know we only saw her for one book, but did you guys think she was interesting, or no real opinion?
I think she was hot.
Yeah.
in more than one sense of the word, but yeah. I really liked her as a character, actually, and yeah, so honestly, I think I've mentioned this before, I am not an in-depth reader of like the Dresden Files. When I'm reading it, there's always that speculation in my mind, but usually I'm pretty much just in the roller coaster with Harry Dresden while I'm reading it. And so at the end, when they do the whole Mexican standoff thing and everybody starts like throwing down their cards, and it's like, oh, holy crap, why didn't I see that coming? And so for me, it was just like a perfect thing where it's like she was a great turn card and she was a great kind of ace in the hole, because she would kind of help neutralize Harry's powers as well, I think was part of the idea. And just seeing her interactions with Harry, she was witty and sarcastic. She was literally just the perfect kind of foil for him in several ways. So it was nice to see her. It was nice to see her during the ballroom scene and stuff like that. So
Yeah, that's the thing. But you're so good, just like George R. R. Martin, at like showing you something really great and then just yanking it away. Because Hannah Asher would have been such a great character to see, in the books, and then at the end, it's like, oh, she's a Denarian. Damn it! It's like, so I totally get what you're saying. Anybody else, Hannah Asher?
I mean, I mostly liked her, but my whole thing is like how much of you guys liking her is because of Dresden's POV. Because here comes this attractive girl who's not Murphy, who's not Molly, and she's joking back with him and stuff. And I think that has a lot, that influences a lot. At least having Dresden's POV and like, oh, this is an attractive girl and she's paying attention to me and stuff.
So to challenge that a little bit, though, do you think it's Dresden's point of view, or do you think that if you were at the bar and this total babe came up and started hitting on you, that you wouldn't also be interested? Because in a way, like, she's deliberately throwing herself at Harry, which we figure out later. Mm-hmm. But in the bar, like, objectively, I'm not sure I would know the difference. Like,
yeah, I wouldn't either.
Yeah, I mean, so director Alex, if a hot chick came up to you at a bar and started throwing herself at you, I mean, you got to be objective for us. I think the guys are doomed.
Yeah, we're all screwed.
Well, I'd be pretty happy if a hot girl's talking to me, but at the same time, I'm wondering, why is she talking to me? I'm not very special. And Dresden says that too. It's like, why is she throwing herself at Binder? It'd be kind of something to unnerve someone if like this very hot person is talking to a very normal person.
That's true. I don't think I have that little voice. So yeah, I'm a goner. So.
But and I think it's also interesting that we're seeing kind of another woman who is like Harry. We haven't really seen that yet, I think. I mean, Murphy's kind of close, but we haven't really seen that yet. What do you guys think?
Well, we have seen Lucio, and she does bear some similarities with Dresden, if not more like what Dresden could have been in the future, or what he still might be in the future, with Lucio's relationship to Morgan, with Harry's relationship to Molly. But I do agree that we haven't seen someone who is generally in the same kind of place or relatively close to that we have with Dresden. So I do agree with that.
Yeah, that's a good point. So we've kind of gone through the gambit here. We've got about 15 minutes left. I thought we could talk a little bit more about Nicodemus and his kind of overarching goal. Do we go for it, Alex?
Actually, there's something I wanted to bring up and ask Justin if you found anything about it. I got to talk to someone who is a fan, and that was pretty cool. But he brought up a question about the Denarians, of who can the Denarians actually give a coin to? What are the restrictions on that? So, hi, Joshua. And, I mean, you're trying to give it to the archive, and she has to accept it, but the Genoskua can take it, and he's not human. And would Michael be obligated to save the Genoskua from his own choices, or what are the restrictions on that?
That's a super fantastic question. I don't think I found any answers, and part of it is kind of going back to, I don't think I actually explicitly said it, but it was in the back of my mind that I think part of the reason why I had so much time, like such a hard time researching it is that is as perfect as this fits into the world and uses little anchor points, like this is, as far as I can tell, like Butcher made it up. Like he's using things. He's got like, well, we've got lawful evil and lawful good over here, so we're going to take a little bit of that and put it in the pot. And then there was this legend about Judas and the 30 coins. Like, wouldn't it be sweet if those were inhabited by demons, kind of like the Legion in the flock of pigs, sort of a thing. Like, so there's precedence, right, in places, but I don't think there's anything explicitly said. And I mean, if I'm allowed to speculate, then I mean, I don't think Michael was worried about saving the genus whatever. I can't say it. I'm a white dude, but anyway, no. So anyway, but the the tanker in it was Ursiel, right? So Ursiel's coin basically, like, in a sense, I don't know. It's curious because on the one hand, I'm on board with he's a denizen of the Never Never, or at best he's a like a wild fae, right, where he hasn't quite made his choice, like at best. So we don't know enough about what the Bigfoot tribe type people actually are, though they're presumably denizens of the Never Never at some point, at least half. And then Michael, but at the flip side, like the Knights of the Cross care about saving the victims of the Denarians, because to the Knights of the Cross, they're not hosts, they're victims. And so, pretty much it comes down to who the Denarians give the coin to is apparently not restricted by, mortals, at least not strictly human mortals, as Dresden and the White Council usually refer to them as. That's just mortal kind. So it's not restricted to that. They are literally opportunists. They just throw the coins at whoever has got low self-esteem at the moment and might make a good foot soldier. In some cases, like some of the coins rotate that frequently. Certainly, Silurial has not resurfaced, I think, as far as we've seen, and Lashiel was used at the right moment. So there are some pivotal, like, strategic coins in a sense. But yeah, those are fantastic questions, and I wouldn't want to step in for Jim and tell him what they are. So maybe we need to get on a QA and. You or me. I'm down because some of my research, honestly, that was the biggest thing that I got out of my research beyond what I already knew, was that we have not asked Jim Butcher nearly enough questions about the Denarians that we know so little about it.
Yeah, and Joshua was also saying something about, like, what happens if a fairy took up a coin. If Leah made the choice to pick up a Denarian coin, what would happen? Would she be infected with the Denarian? Would it not take effect because she's not human enough?
That's a good question, and that delves into fairy nature, because fairies are kind of half mortal, sorta, in a way anyway, because they are the closest denizens of the Never Never to the mortal world, and that's why they look the most similar, and they steal human babies and whatever else. But literally, these are things like in the books, very little tidbits and stuff. But I think if Leah herself picked up a coin, my speculation would be that well, A, maybe she just wouldn't because she would know better, but B, if she did, she could probably resist it, because we've already seen her, like, be mind controlled. The Athame was kind of a big deal, but that was special. That was outsider special, so that was Nemesis. And then I honestly think potentially she could resist the Denarian in the coin, but we're also talking about creatures that are even older than the fairies, so maybe she would just be like, nope, I'm a evil little psychopath with extra fire magic now, and she would be another force that Matt would have to squish again. So
I think I could take a stab at this. So the fallen angels, it's all about choice, right? So I would think that a fallen angel can only inhabit some being that has choice, has free will, because the whole idea is to corrupt free will, right? And kind of override that and apply the fallen angel to that free will. So I don't think that if Leah picked up the coin, it would work really, because she has no free will. The Athame and Nemesis works the other way, the opposite way. Destroys. It gives free will. So that's why it was able to infect Leah. Does that kind of make sense?
That So the first part of it, fantastic point. That was not something that I had considered, and that's absolutely what I think is going on there. So I mean, whether they're mortal or not, it makes sense that it more comes down to free will because the Denarians are manipulating that, not necessarily like going against it. Because I don't know, you kind of see that with Ursiel in Death Masks, right? That he is literally bound. He's a slave of
Hmm.
the fallen at this point, but how long does it take to get to that point, and did he hook himself in, whatever. But I think the nemesis part, it doesn't necessarily, like, it does do the opposite in a sense, but it doesn't grant free will, because otherwise, like, Cat Sith would have done whatever the hell he wanted. But
Hmm.
it makes them go contrary to their nature,
Yeah,
and
that's
that
what I
one's
meant.
definitely more like a binding force. So that was all I wanted to put in. But that the free will thing, big deal. Yeah, I think that's a better answer for sure.
But then, like,
Uh, go for it.
if the Junosqua can choose to take up the Denarian's coin, then he has free will. Then the Knights of the Cross and then like Uriel and the angels, they're supposed to be protecting his choices.
Sorry,
Potentially. So the problem I have with answering that question is that we still don't know how the white god, so to speak, and the host of angels and all that actually interplay with the Never Never. We don't know if they're outside of it, beside it, on top of it, like.
I think it's
So,
kind of implied that they're inside of it.
interesting.
Because there's something in. I mean, it's who knows, right? It could be something greater than the Never Never, but I mean, they keep referring to it like when Harry dies in Ghost Story. Maybe Stark could talk a little more about this. I think it's implied that he's in the spirit world. No,
I'm sorry, it cut out on my end for a second.
that's okay. When Harry dies in Ghost Story, right? And he's kind of doing stuff. It's implied that he's in the spirit world, right?
He's in an in-between world.
Yeah.
They were very vague about it when he meets Murphy's father about where exactly they are. They're basically like, we're kind of in between here and there.
Right.
And I'm not sure how that falls into play with anything else. Because he asks about it possibly being purgatory, and he says, if that's how you want to look at it, sure. They themselves might not even know. The only thing that we do know is that angels can be present in that in-between place because Harry encounters one as a security guard when he goes into the police department.
Right.
And
go ahead.
well, it just seems it's not in the Never Never, I don't think, because Uriel pauses time to talk to Dresden and Captain Murphy. When he's like, "What's this thing he's saying about 3 people dying?" And that, like, I don't know, there's something going on there. And Bob can't see the shroud because they're living on different frequencies. And Bob is an air spirit of Never Never.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I guess we'll have to it'll have to be, we'll have to wait and see. Go for it, Justin.
Yeah, I was just gonna say at the same time, like, I don't think Bob can just peer into the Never Never, so it goes to the planes. Like, it just might, it might be separate from the Never Never, because I don't think it's. I think it's sort of actually established in a way. Like, if you think about Grave Peril, like the Never Never and the spirit world are not necessarily the same thing. They behave similarly, but you'd at any point in time has Dresden run into random spirits in the Never Never, like random like ghosts of people and things like that. So I don't know. I don't know if it's just because they're more localized when it's a ghost, because you had Tabitha, what's her face from Grave Peril, and her little fire plane. Well, it was fire when Dresden got there anyway, but so it's kind of curious. And then I think a lot of Carmichael's hemming and hawing could be just Butcher as an author being like, I'm not going to dip my toe into this too far. And the other part is he kind of writes it in that Carmichael just has a better understanding and not the time to explain it to him. So like, yes, where we are would be perceived as purgatory to some people, but it's more than that. That's too simple of a term. Because it's certainly Captain Murphy's purgatory. He will never get to leave that place. For good behavior, for bad behavior, for whatever, he's pretty much going to be there. And in a way, they keep the choice thing as part of it, is that Captain Murphy believes that he should be there. So until that changes, like, he's going to be there in a sense. I don't know. I don't know if that's just me. So
No, yeah, that's a really good way to put it. Because I mean, I haven't been religious for a long time, but it was my understanding that purgatory was basically the waiting room. Like you did your time there, and then once you felt that you were ready to, go to heaven, then you would. So that works perfectly. And with Captain Murphy, like, no, I need to be here. And then maybe someday he'll be like, okay, I've done, enough good. I'm ready to go to there.
That's good. All right, we're reaching the end of the show. Did anybody have anything else to say about Denarians? Anybody?
I do.
Go for it.
And I got something that's probably going to be a neat teaser for either future podcasts or something that'll happen in future books.
Mm-hmm.
We have seen a fair number of the coins, but we haven't seen all of them. There are a lot of unknown coins. Now, I think it's fair to say that the coins are inhabited by fallen angels, and we don't know exactly which fallen angels, except for the ones that have been named, correct?
right.
Well, what I wonder, what angels that haven't been talked about or named are in there. And there's one angel in particular I'm really interested and intrigued about. And it's an angel I actually did some research on a couple of years ago named Raguel, or the other name, Akraziel. Anybody familiar with him?
Nope.
Can't say that I am.
He is one from the Judaic
Yeah,
list of archangels.
That's the guy who the father of Nightcrawler is based on, right?
No, that's Azazel.
Oh.
I'm speaking of Akraziel.
Okay.
Or Akraziel, I don't know the exact pronunciation. But his name means friend of God. He's the archangel of justice, fairness, harmony, and vengeance, one of the seven who watch. And he's the arbiter of other angels, the persecutor of the fallen, with fire. And just as another pop culture reference with it, the Spectre from comic books is implied to actually be the embodiment of Raguel or Akraziel. So I'm wondering, because with this specific angel, there was a ruling at some point in Christianity, between Judaism and Christianity and their formation and organization, where they condemned certain angels from being worshipped or, considered blessed or what have you. And he's one of them. So in a lot of ways, you might be able to interpret that as being fallen in some sense. So what I wonder is Jim Butcher going to take this into account, specifically with him, or if there are other angels in similar situations, and just in general, what other angels are we going to encounter from now on?
Yeah, that's a good. Like, what? I mean, as far as I understood it, when they say fallen, they're talking about the great falling, where the war between heaven and hell, and all the angels who were on the hell side fell. So I don't know if it's also other angels that could have fallen, or I don't know. What do you guys think?
That would be an interesting workaround, though, because according to that guy's story, he's technically a fallen angel, but you could have a Denarian in a coin who would be on the side of good. That would be cool. I'm not sure if there would be a way to implement that, but it's an interesting idea.
There's a Denarian named Akariel, which is kind of close, and I was wondering if maybe that's a tip off into that character. But it's the one that Thomas killed, so I don't know.
Yeah, I made sure to double check when I was researching this, just because I wanted to make sure that, because Raguel, like a lot of the other angels, have multiple names, so I wanted to check through all of them just to make sure that there was no crossover or any chance that Raguel had been used. But then again, there is some kind of inconsistency with the angel names that Jim Butcher's given, like Lashiel, for example. You can't just find the exact angel name for Lashiel. So.
Well, and that speaks to what Justin was saying earlier, that like most of this is, while it touches in elements of reality and theology, it's a lot of it is just out of Jim Butcher's head. So I don't know if he would want to. I mean, like, it could be one of those touchstones where he ties it into something that does exist in our world. But as far as copying like the entirety of this guy's MO and backstory and stuff into his book, I don't know that he would go that far.
Cool. So I think we're going to wrap it up because we're just at about an hour. So thank you guys. Thank you, Alex, for doing a lot of the legwork. So again, just search well, I guess if you're watching this, you probably already know, but just search Dresden Files podcast on YouTube. I forgot to mention before the website, DresdenFilesPodcast.com. You can email us at DresdenFilesPodcast@gmail.com. Find us on Twitter, DresdenCast, Twitter.com/DresdenCast. You can see us posting on Reddit, reddit.com//DresdenFiles. Sorry, for your official Jim Butcher forums, we don't really care about you. Just kidding. I'll check those every once in a while.
Everyone has been meaning to go to them. We're just not on there.
Yeah, come to Reddit. It's a better place. Not really.
And if you want to get on the show, if anyone wants to become a guest host or something, just send us an email or tweet at us or contact us in some way, and I'll start talking at you.
And I think that's it for this show. Am I forgetting anything, guys? I don't think so.
I think that's a wrap.
I think next episode we might start talking about ranking the books. Not sure if we're going to save that for the 10th episode. But yeah, I think that's it. Everybody say goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, buddy.
Thanks for listening or watching.